Vitali.
Molly Jong-Fast.
Thank you for coming on. I love you and think you're great.
Love you.
Um,
Think you're great.
and also Congress almost made itself relevant today. Discuss.
Congress tried to Congress. TBD if they did it.
It's like the first time they've tried to do it all season.
It's nice when we get a revival, like a callback to a past season.
That's
Who
right. Of
knows?
Congress trying to do its
Revivals are
job.
never as good as the original, though, so we'll see what
So
we get here.
exactly. So let's set this up. Homeland Security, DHS, in a shutdown, had been in a shutdown, with the exception of the president's super scary paramilitary, which has its own funding, which
Yeah.
is funded for billions of dollars forever and ever. But shutting down Homeland was in the hopes that they could negotiate more stuff for ICE, more guardrails, maybe some identification, lack of masks, body cameras, some of the kind of stuff we technically have in what used to be our country. So, talk us through what actually happened.
If this deal of the Senate passed a bill that would reopen DHS and fund everything except for ICE and border protection, if that sounds familiar, it's because it is literally the thing that we started 42 days ago with Democrats saying, hey, we will actually vote to keep DHS open if only we pull out these two pieces of it.
Right.
And I think that the deal
Our
that they,
ICE.
right, exactly.
Right.
And I think the deal that they came out with tells us two things. The first, and we have to wait and see if the House ultimately passes this. There are questions about how quickly they can move. There's a rule in the House that you can't vote by suspension, which is basically how you bypass the Rules Committee and need a two-third majority of the chamber to pass something. You can't do those kinds of votes on Fridays. So it kind of bogs down the process. And it means that Speaker Johnson has to herd more of his own cats, getting them to the table while also haggling with Democrats. So at 11 a.m. now on Friday, TBD how the House or if the House ultimately moves on this. But the way the Senate did this deal tells us two things. The first is that Republicans are aware that ICE was getting its funding through another mechanism, so they can sort of
Mm-hmm.
save political face by saying, yeah, we can reopen it without technically funding ICE. The second
Mm-hmm.
thing is the leverage is now sort of gone for any guardrails to be negotiated on. And so while Democrats have clearly made the point that they are not going to fund ICE any further, A, Republicans already did that last summer, and
Right.
B, there is now no real political push to do guardrails on ICE and border protection for the way that they do immigration enforcement. I just think, like, I heard whispers of this back in January after the tragedies on the ground in Minneapolis,
Right.
and I think that time, unfortunately, is masking that political wound, and so I just don't have a ton of confidence. I'd love to be proven wrong that there are gonna be new guardrails negotiated.
Right. But I want to talk about sort of what happened. So 41 days of shutdown, right? We have TSA workers not being paid for 41 days. That's how we got these terrible bottlenecks in the airports. Now, so earlier this week, there was a deal,
Yeah.
and Donald Trump said, no dice, no deal with Democrats
Yeah.
until I get, by the way, I love this. Until I get my SAVE Act so that I can mess with elections and not lose at the midterms. Explain to us what happened on Friday because or on Thursday, because on Thursday he said, we're actually good. I'm going to fund it, which is actually not true. And then he did an executive order. So explain what happened there.
Trump trying to include the SAVE Act here is
Right.
like should be a sweetener, but it actually isn't a sweetener. It just causes more problems
Mm-hmm.
for Republicans. Like every time he comes forward and says, I'm not going to sign any other bill until you send me the SAVE Act, like he's actually, the call is coming from inside his own house on this
Yeah,
one.
for
And it's
sure.
coming from him messing with his colleagues on the Republican side who, like, yes, there are a large number of them who want to vote for that bill. But there are also not enough people in the Senate to bypass the 60 vote threshold of the filibuster. He wants
Right.
them to then blow up the filibuster. And John Thune is like, hey, I have a memory longer than a flea. I remember when Democrats held the line and we praised them, and we don't want to be on the receiving end of whatever Democrats would do without a filibuster, right? So that's the backdrop.
Right.
Trump then tried to come in over the top after scuttling a deal that came together that looked, by the way, a heck of a ton just like the one that they ended up doing by unanimous consent overnight in the Senate to reopen DHS. He ended up coming in over the top and saying, okay, I'm just going to executive order payment to TSA agents, which, by the way, power of the purse is a Congress thing, even though we
Right.
know that Congress doesn't really Congress anymore. And it also gives Democrats a pretty simple talking point of,
Mhm.
oh, if you were able to do this 41 days ago, why'd you let these people suffer for so long? And by the way, since he's not actually technically able to do that, he's moving money around within DHS, and we've
Right.
seen them do this before. So
Right.
even though they're not allowed to do it, Congress is not clawing back the power.
Right.
So that's kind of where it leaves it. And so we'll
Right.
see ultimately which thing gets TSA agents paid first, but that's the landscape.
And I also think it's really a case of Trump trying to take credit for
Sure.
something. Right. Like clearly somebody was like, I mean, I was on Morning Joe today with Mara Gay, and Mara was talking about how she had talked to voters on these lines who blamed Trump. Have you seen that?
I think that what's instructive is that the last shutdown, where Republicans were so sure they were not going to get blamed,
Right.
polling showed they were getting blamed. And in this instance, I think it is the same thing yet again. Because A, the polling was already there against immigration overreach, right?
Hmm.
You couple that with the fact that voters, as much as some of them are not paying attention to the rules about a suspension on a Friday, like they don't care. Thank God.
Right.
I only get paid for that, right? But
Hmm.
they do care about being smart enough to know, wait a second, Republicans control not just the White House, but the House and the Senate. And the government is in a shutdown. So why is the majority party, with all the numbers and all the power, not making it work? And
Right.
frankly, when the shoe's on the other foot, that's why Democrats get blamed. The party in
Right.
power always gets smeared because voters are smart enough to know the basic thing is run the government. And if the
Right.
government's not running, then what's up?
Right. And I think so. So I think that Trump trying to like take credit for this also cuts both ways because if he could have ended it today,
Yeah.
why didn't he end it 41 days ago?
Correct. You know, I think the thing that's so interesting, and we were talking about this on my show this morning. Shout out to Way Too Early. Everyone who wants to be a morning person, you can come hang out with us.
5 a.m.
Um, 5 a.m. But we were talking about this idea that like the issue set right now on affordability, on not having daylight with the White House. The Republican strategist I had on this morning said the issue set right now is the exact opposite of what Republicans did to Democrats in 2024. In 2024, Republicans were slamming Democrats on why won't you break with Biden? Why won't you criticize Kamala Harris? Costs are high. You're not doing anything about it. And now it's exactly the same, but Democrats doing it to Republicans. And
Right.
Republicans, the question they're going to have to answer, and I know that they are grappling with this privately, but private doesn't count because we're in a public environment.
Right.
They are going to have to figure out when their political fortunes matter more than fealty to the White House, which is only making their headwinds more aggressive than history told them they were already going to be in this midterm.
I think that's a really good point, and that's what we see. The Biden administration did this thing, which was they said you can break with us, which a lot of White Houses have not said. They said you can criticize, right?
Everyone but Kamala
Kamala
Harris.
Harris. All right, so tell us exactly that. Tell us what the story was, and also what the history is of not being able to break with the White House in power.
Well, look, I mean, like you don't break with the leaders of your party. That's just not really what it is to be in a party apparatus. There's
Right.
always different rules, right? I mean, Nancy Pelosi was the best at this. She would tell some of her more vulnerable members when she had to twist their arms to put them in line. Yeah, I mean, like she was the velvet hammer on that for a reason. And
Right.
many of those Democratic members have scars to tell of the times that she twisted them into votes that were problematic for them. But at the same time, she used to say to them, just win, baby, do what you got to do to win the
Right.
race because ultimately the numbers here in Washington are what matters. That's what midterms are about. And so, yes, White Houses are important in that, but typically presidents don't command as much fealty as
Right.
Trump does. And that's where you have to get into grappling with the fact that the Republican Party is not showing signs of being a healthy party, in that
Mhm.
while for people who ascribe to a Democratic faith or a Republican faith, it's hard to see people within the party argue with each other, but it is actually the sign that there is a healthy exchange of ideas. And in the Republican Party right now, having any idea that is opposite of what Trump wants you to have is considered disloyal, is considered reason to be primaried, and is considered to be reason to be cleaned out of the House. And he's shown that he's willing to do that. And so for these members, whether the White House were to greenlight this or not, and of course they never would, for these members, they have to stay in line, even though Trump is not on the ticket and Trump is only providing them problems politically in some of these tougher swing districts. We're really talking about like 30 seats here. And
Right.
if even half of them flip, I mean, that's a bigger majority than Republicans have had in the last 2 Congresses.
R Yes. So what they are gonna do now, I want you to talk through Congress for a minute. So
Yeah.
there'll be this vote, they'll fund DHS. Then they're gonna still need to fund ICE, though ICE has $10 trillion through the BBB.
Yeah.
They're gonna put that will mean that soon we'll have to do another package. So talk us through what that means.
Reconciliation is like my least favorite word because everyone's eyes glaze over, but
Right.
really it just means
So
whatever party is in power gets to unilaterally put together a group of things that have a budgetary impact. That's really important.
right.
And pass it on through, right? So they did the so-called one big beautiful bill. That was through the process of reconciliation. They're coming back on a reconciliation 2.0. God only knows what the title of this one will be. But there is a lot of consternation among Republicans about getting this second package through, in large part because it's expected to include things like $200 billion in supplemental funding for the ongoing Iran war, a conflict that, frankly, even top Republicans in the House are starting to get a little bit vocal about. They don't feel they're getting clear information from the administration. They're saying, look, we're not being disloyal. We just aren't getting our questions answered, which, frankly,
Right.
is what Democrats have been complaining about from these administration briefings for months now. So the fact that
Right.
Republicans are catching up is
Yeah,
notable.
Roger Wicker, right? Yeah.
Well, Wicker has been, like, a little more private in the concern.
Right.
Mike Rogers over on the
Mike
House side
Rogers.
is
Yeah.
who has been the most vocal of this, and he's at the
But we
chairman
s
level, so
right,
notable.
and we
Nancy
saw
Mace, though,
se
too, others.
yeah,
But
go on.
so even if you just look at that, right, that $200 billion is fraught from the fact that Republicans didn't get to vote their way into the Iran war, but now they are gonna be asked to vote on funding for it, and they're gonna be asked to just swallow any concerns that they have about that ongoing conflict. That's
Yeah.
just one piece of it, right? Once you get into a period of reconciliation, especially in a midterm year, you've got members who are going to be coming out saying, no, wait, I want this. No, wait, I want this. And when your majorities are as slim as they are, you
Mhm.
actually have as a member, you have a singular ability to withhold your vote until you get the thing that you want. Everyone in the House gets to be, a Senator Joe Manchin or a Senator Kirsten Sinema to put it in terms that the audience might be triggered to understand,
Right.
right? Like you have a singular power when your vote is so needed. And this is not going to be an easy process, but it is likely to be one that comes on really fast on the Hill.
Right. And I think that is important and relevant.
Well, because that's also
Uh,
gonna be where they try to do some SAVE Act stuff,
right.
and others, right?
They're gonna
So
Yeah, so talk us through that. They're gonna SAVE Act is this idea that Trump wants to federalize elections, basically, and make it harder to vote, and he's all over the place, and it's bad for democracy, but it's very bad for Republicans in a certain way because places like Alaska vote by mail in huge numbers. What do you think he's gonna try here? Because reconciliation, remember, has a top line that is supposed to be budgetary.
it has to hit some kind of budgetary bottom line, so you have to connect federal funding
Yeah.
to whatever it is you're trying to do, and this is why the parliamentarian is gonna be so important. You're gonna hear us congressional reporters a lot
Yeah.
saying, "Well, the parliamentarian ruled this, or not this." So that's gonna be impactful. But look, I think the SAVE Act, the reason why it's not getting every single Republic full-throated, "We're doing this, oh my," is because of what you're saying.
Right.
Republicans do well with rural voters in rural states. And in rural states, sometimes that means that you cannot get to your polling place or maybe you just don't want to. And when you look at a state like Alaska, which is so important to bring up because this is one of the key seats that we are looking in the Senate landscape. I've gone to Alaska, I've covered these contests in the past. Mary Peltola, I covered her first election to Congress, right? It was where she beat Sarah Palin. Palin was trying to make a comeback. This was 2022.
22, yeah.
Peltola has been out of the House for 2 years. Huge recruiting opportunity for Chuck Schumer that he was able to succeed with. And now
She's
we're in
very
a position
popular
where
in
Dan Sullivan,
Alaska.
the Republican, is trying to run for reelection. And if you're taking away people's ability to participate in that contest, I don't think that helps him.
Yeah.
And this is
No,
just one example of why that legislation, like, yes, on its face, voter ID actually, I think, sounds common sense to a lot of people. But when you start talking about needing your birth certificate to match your other forms of identification, and you start thinking about something as simple as women getting married and changing their last names, it's just one immediate example of why that legislation on its face doesn't actually do what Republicans say it does.
right, and there's also some question. I mean, look, I think it's bad for any number of reasons, and even just the fact that Trump is trying to mess with elections because he sees the polling, and we see what Mike Lee is tweeting, and we see Republicans giving away the game here. But there's some evidence too that this could actually hurt Republicans. It doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
cut because remember, Trump had all these low frequency, low propensity voters come out for him, and
Yes.
those people do not necessarily have passports, etc.
Also, can we just please point out what happened in the cabinet meeting the other day where our friend Liz Landers at PBS said to him, "Why did you use a mail-in ballot to vote
Right.
in the legislative election around Palm Beach?" And he's like, "Well, I wasn't there. I was in Washington." And she's like, "Yeah, but like you were in Palm Beach. So why didn't you just go in person?" And his
Right.
answer is like, "Well, I'm the president." And it's like, "Oh, so
Yeah.
can you only vote by mail if you're the president?" Like, what?
Well, and my favorite part of that whole thing is that not only did he vote by mail, but his son voted by mail and his wife voted by
And that
mail.
is perfectly allowed.
Yeah. And wait, no, my favorite part though is that the state senator, the Florida state senator representing his district on Tuesday, lost.
Yeah.
And that I think and that was a big flip because that was on R plus
Yeah,
something.
and the DLCC, the Democratic Ledge Committee, is putting out this statistic, and they're right to. It's a great number. The fact that they have been able to flip 30 legislative seats across the country in the
Right.
past year, and Republicans have been able to flip 0. And I think the thing that we're forced to grapple with is, are those singular, specific elections, which they might be. Special
Which is what
elections can
Mike
sometimes be
Johnson said
special.
on
Yeah.
Fox News. Yes.
Which that could be
It's
true, right?
possible.
Special elections
Yeah.
can be special, but also when there's 30 of them, I
Mhm.
think that that's more of a pattern that's worth paying attention to and could be a really, again, add it to the list of negative signs for Republicans going into the midterms.
Well, the polling is unbelievably bad. I mean, he's on the back foot on everything from the economy to inflation to immigration. I mean, he
Yeah.
has no winning issues anymore.
And those really were his untouchables, right? I mean, Democrats that I would talk to, that I'm sure that you were talking to, were sort of like racked with, okay, in a 2024 election cycle that is focused on immigration and affordability and like national security, and Trump is running away with those issues, fair or not. That's what the minds of the electorate said.
Right.
Like Democrats were constantly vexed with how they could get a cohesive message out that would counter that. And early on in the Trump administration, some of them started saying to me, like, we just got to let this play out because he is going to overreach. They are going to overstep, and the public is going to say, whoa, 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 we voted for it, but not like that. And I think
Yeah.
that might be the story that we end up telling in mid-November after the election. But ultimately, you won't truly know until you know.
Yeah. We voted for it, but not like that.
Yeah.
Ali Vitali, thank you for joining.
Molly, always.